Happy belated holidays, ladies and gentlemen who happen to be watching this. So I promised last video, in my video talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, I was going to be covering a review of Wonder Woman 1984 or Soul. However, due to the fact of some of the gifts I've received this holiday season, and in addition to the fact that I'm currently binge watching The Office right now, I'm currently on Season 4 right now, I decided the fact that I'm probably going to save both of those reviews for the new year, so those are going to, even though they're films of 2020, I'm probably going to save those for 2021, because January and February, there's pretty much no movies coming out, so I need to fill it with something. But, hope you guys all had happy holidays. It's probably going to be the final video that I'm going to make, for the year. And of course, you know, why not have it be a superhero one? I mean, I'm wearing this Deadpool sweater for a reason. One of the many great things about this year was that somehow my parents and Santa, through their divine powers and such, not that they're godly or that, I digress, we not only managed to get an Xbox Series X for Christmas, which that in itself was absolutely nuts, but we also got a PS5. And that is really cool. Now, if we're going to have a next generation systems, we need games to play on that system. Thankfully enough, Santa and the parents came through, because two games in particular that I asked for on my list were granted. And those games were Spider-Man Miles Morales and the remake of Demon's Souls. Technically it's Demon's Souls, but I'm going to say Demon's Souls because it's a lot easier. Now these are the two games that whenever people mention the PS5, these are the games that they're talking about, because whereas Sony had stuff like this, Bugsnax, Sackboy, Astro's Playroom, Godfall, I guess. Microsoft, on the other hand, only had, like, what, Assassin's Creed Valhalla? And that came out on the PlayStation 5 like 2 days later. Call of Duty Cold War Black Ops or whatever that game was called. Yeah. So it definitely seems like Sony is definitely currently winning this console generation so far. But who will actually win in the end? Well, I'll get back to you on that in 7 years when eventually we have to deal with the PlayStation 6 and whatever the heck Microsoft decides to call the next Xbox, because they seriously need to come with a more consistent naming system than this. But, obviously, have not got started on Demon's Souls yet, because, for those who do not know, this game was originally from Software. It was published for the PlayStation 3 in 2009 and remastered by Bluepoint Games in 2020 as a launch title for the PS5. Demon's Souls, along with the whole Soulsborne genre of games, which includes Dark Souls 1 through 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, they're known to be some of the hardest video games there is. They're known for intense difficulty, boss battles that just are ridiculous to beat. And this was the game that pretty much helped to pioneer that genre of Souls games. So, I haven't gotten started on it yet because I don't feel like punishing myself right now for this holiday season, because I want to really enjoy myself before the new year. But anyways, so that is why instead I'm going to be talking about Miles Morales. Now, as soon as the PlayStation 5 announcement happened back in June, this was the first game that they ended up announcing for it. And it was with that singular trailer, with this one game here, that I realized I want a PS5. Because I absolutely love Spider-Man 2018. It's still one of my all-time favorite video games. Obviously, The Last of Us has dethroned it as my all-time favorite game, but it is still definitely in my top 5 all-time favorites. So when I found out that Insomniac was working on a new Spider-Man game, except this time it would be focusing on Miles Morales, I couldn't be more thrilled, because I'm so happy about this character, you know, becoming as big as he is. And the thing is, Miles has only been around since 2011. Yeah, Miles has only been around for like 9 years, and he's achieved a level that Spider-Man has been able, that the original Peter Parker achieved over the course of like 60 years. And yet Miles has been around for not even a decade, and yet he's already been featured in several cartoons. He had a movie in which he was the main protagonist. He was a big supporting character of the 2018 game, and now he gets to be in a game of his own. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, this is the Ultimate Edition, which includes not only Spider-Man Miles Morales, but it also includes a code that can be redeemed on the PlayStation Store for Spider-Man Remastered. Remember how I told you guys about how I played The Last of Us Remastered for the PlayStation 4? Well, it's essentially the exact same mindset except for Spider-Man on the PS5. And also, I'm just going to get this out of the way real quick. I know a lot of people are not happy over the change of Peter Parker's face model, and while I do still think the original was probably better, I don't hate the new face change. I just think the fact that maybe it just could take some time for me to get used to it, but I don't hate it. But back onto the subject of Miles Morales, what is the plot of the game? Well, the game is set 1 year following the events of the original game, following the whole Devil's Breath crisis and the turf war that broke out in the City That Never Sleeps DLC, which unfortunately I have not played that section of it yet. Peter is essentially training Miles to become Spider-Man, and it's the holidays, everybody's celebrating, it's festive-y and all the other stuff, and Peter tells Miles he's actually going to be away for a couple weeks because him and Mary Jane are going out of the country on a mission. So, Peter leaves Miles in charge of New York City as its sole protector and as Spider-Man. And Miles feels really intimidated by that because Peter at this point has been Spider-Man for around 9 years at this point. Miles has only really started doing this since, he got bit by that spider around a year ago. So he's not only lacking in experience, but while Peter is a fully grown adult, and he's 24 or 25 years old, Miles is only 16 or 17 years old. He's still a kid. And yes, that he's technically around the same age that Peter was when he first got his spider powers, but that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody, let alone a teenager. But then, things end up getting more complicated when Miles finds himself in the middle of a turf war between two factions. The first faction is the energy group known as Roxxon, led by Simon Krieger, who happens to be played by Troy Baker, because of course he is. And the other happens to be a group called the Underground, who are led by a mastermind known only as the Tinkerer. And, without spoiling it, the Tinkerer holds a very personal and special connection to Miles. Now, overall, what did I think of this game? Now, Insomniac has stated that when this game was announced, it was going to be a much smaller game than Spider-Man for the PS4. If you look on howlongtobeat.com, usually if you just go through the main story of this game, you can knock it out in 7 hours. As opposed to the 15 or 20 or so that it would take to complete the main story in Spider-Man PS4. So it wasn't going to be this huge, big AAA release. But, I still really loved it. I still really, really enjoyed it. Man, is it a really great launch title for PlayStation 5 because it really tests out the capabilities, it not only pushes the graphical limits of the PS5, but it also is a great example of the DualSense controller that is used. With it, you're able to feel every punch. You're able to feel even the tiniest things. From Miles just happens to be walking on the street or whatever, to a fist bump that he'll have with one of his friends or family, to even the electricity that comes off of the Venom blasts that Miles uses. And one thing that I really did enjoy is that over the course of the game, Miles begins to unlock different abilities. For example, when you start off in the game, he has all the standard powers of Spider-Man. He's got the wall crawling, he can shoot webs, he has the spider sense you can use to dodge stuff. But then, over the course of the game, he gains 3 new abilities. The first is the ability to use a Venom Blast, which he can be able to use to temporarily paralyze his enemies and take them out. Another ability he ends up acquiring is the ability to sort of camouflage himself and go invisible. And he can be able to use that during stealth sections whenever you have to confront a large group of guys, whether it be from Roxxon or the Underground. And his third ability is that he has the Mega Venom Blast. So when you fully charge up, you can do L1 and circle triangle, and then you can unlock a huge blast that could, like, obliterate every enemy within its vicinity, which is pretty huge. And very much like the previous game, it also comes with not just a skill tree, but also a series of side quests that you could do. One thing that I really liked about it was that Miles and Genki, his best friend, in order to help gain the city's trust, launch an app. The Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man app, as it is. And it's pretty much, like ways of how Miles can do quests. Like, hey, Spider-Man, my cat got stolen and I need you to help bring him back to me. Or, hey, Spider-Man, so, my car got stolen by a bunch of guys and I need you to help retrieve it. Or, hey, Spider-Man, I got some information that you might need on, like, a case that you might be working on right now. So, if you need it, come meet me here at this square. And, that's actually a really cool framing device of how to initiate side quests or actually pursue through main quests. As opposed to in the original game, which you just happen to be setting up cell phone services and just hope by chance that you happen to randomly be near a side quest. Now, is there anything that I particularly did not like about this game? Well, it is the fact that while I do still really enjoy it, like, I love this game. It's probably one of my favorite games of 2020 because I will admit, I did get misty-eyed at the end of the game because, my gosh, that ending, you are not prepared for what might come next because that really hit me. Like, I was not expecting that at all. But I think the fact that overall, in terms of quality, I do think the fact that the original Spider-Man game is a little bit better because not only did I feel like the fact that it had a better defined story, a better main antagonist, and also it just had more stuff to do in a more expansive world. This game, it's more smaller. It's not saying the fact that that's bad, it's just in terms of comparison, it's just like, it's like, hey, like, all that stuff they liked in the original Spider-Man game? It's pretty much the same here, without much changes and such. But yeah, I still overall really did enjoy it, not as much as the original game, but I still really did love it. Just felt like the fact that the main antagonists were a bit weak. Simon Krieger, I really didn't think he was all that intimidating of a bad guy. Even though I know Troy Baker is putting in his all here. I mean, what is the guy never putting in his all? And despite the fact that he has a face model of Topher Grace from Spider-Man 3, just didn't really think that he was all that great villain. And Tinkerer, well, I did think she served her purpose in Miles' story. Like, you understand what she's coming from, you understand her relation to Miles, and you understand why she's doing what she's doing. I just think the fact that in comparison to Doc Ock from the first game, I just think the fact that that villain, Doc Ock, was a better villain, central antagonist in the previous Spider-Man game than Tinkerer. But yeah, I still really thought this was a fantastic game. The performances from everybody were solid. Shout out to the actor who played Miles in the game. I thought he did a fantastic job. The performances, of course, were great. The visuals were fantastic. PlayStation 5, this is next gen, so it looks really fantastic. The ray tracing, surprisingly enough, was actually really cool. The combat was, of course, just as smooth and fluid as you would expect it to be. And, of course, the web swinging is, of course, still as fun as it was all those years ago. So, overall, I'm going to give Spider-Man Miles Morales a 9 out of 10. Think it is a quality game. Now, the thing about this game, though, is that if you cannot afford a PlayStation 5 or could not find a PlayStation 5 yet still want to play this game, do not worry, there is a version available on the PS4. So if you still really want to be able to play the game, then just try and find the PS4 version online, which I think was actually kind of smart for Sony to release a couple of their games from the PS5, also on PS4, like Spider-Man Miles Morales was released this way, Sackboy was released this way, Bugsnax was released this way, in addition to also being released on PC. Godfall also got released on PC as well. And the really two console exclusives were the Demon's Souls remake and Astro's Playroom, which is essentially a tech demo of the PS5's capabilities and the DualSense's capabilities disguised as a game. I'm not saying that's bad, because I actually did play a couple hours of it and it's actually pretty fun. Really celebrates the legacy of PlayStation, but yeah. This is like the really only major console exclusive. Like, you can't find this on PS4 or PC or any other console or Xbox. So, yeah. So, what will the new year hold for me? And what are my plans for it? I have no idea. But I do believe the fact that 2021 is going to be a great year. Why? Because if 2020 has taught me anything, it's that no matter how bad things seem, no matter how bad things get, there's still light at the end of the tunnel. It's the silly notion, the fact that even the coldest, darkest nights can somehow be the warmest and brightest. And 2021 looks like to be that light at the end of the tunnel, because not only are we going to enter into that year with a potential vaccine for this whole situation, but we are also finally, hopefully, returning to a sense of normalcy, I believe. Because if movie theaters don't end up reopening, or at least Regal doesn't end up reopening, thankfully enough, I think I have enough material that I could work with, I could review, because Marvel's planning on releasing at least 4 or 5 different shows within next year alone. And of course, DC, they're going to be releasing Zack Snyder's Justice League in March of next year as well. If I had to guess, it's going to be releasing on March 25th, because that would mark the 5-year anniversary of when Batman vs. Superman was released in theaters. So it would only make sense for it to release then. And it's released on it's a Thursday, and usually HBO Max stuff comes out on Thursdays, but that's a completely different thing. But if movie theaters do end up reopening, then I'm going to have a lot more stuff to review. So, looks like I got a busy workload ahead of me. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have a safe and happy new year. I was going to say happy holidays, but then I realized that the holidays are kind of over now. So, have a happy new year. Have a safe new year. And I wish everybody who watches this video the best, because you deserve the best. And of course, as always, stay gold.